Hello everyone, welcome to AI Anytime channel. Today I'm going to have a very candid conversation with a startup founder named Namee Oberst. So Namee is a founder of a US-based startup named LLMWare. Okay, and also they have AI blocks. If you don't know what LLMWare or the AI blocks is, they basically do a lot of things, mainly when it comes to large language models. Major things is that they have been looking at the both open source stack and also the enterprise grade Gen AI products. Now, when it comes to open source, they have been, strengthening the community when it comes to open source community because they have more than 25 models right now, which is available on their Hugging Face repository. I'll give the link in description. You can check it out as well. Now they have different types of models. They call it dragon models, bling models, and whatnot. Now, the quality of LLMware is that they have, created this specialized models, specialized language models. If you talk about the dragon model, they call it delivering rag on, right? So they basically create rag specialized models, really instruction tuned on those kind of data set that we basically see when we work with the rag pipelines and stuff. So they have those kind of models as well. They also have bling model that will help you run these language models or the large language models on a CPU kind of a machine. So when you have a consumer grade like a machine, a compute limited machine, you can use those on a those CPUs or a consumer grade GPU as well. So their expertise is into create these specialized language models, and they are a big advocate of the smaller language models starting from 1 billion to 7 billion parameters that we see. And they're also working with enterprises. They work with a couple of big names that you will find it on their website. I will give the those details in description. You can check them out. Now they also enable enterprises when it comes to making Gen AI mainstream because they have orchestration frameworks. They have this enterprise grade data sets to work with. They have this LLMs in industries like insurance, financial services. If you go a bit of deeper into domains, you have asset management, you have contracts and whatnot, right? So they basically have a boutique when it comes to generative AI, right? So they have a boutique where they have n number of products and services coming up also on the roadmaps. The major thing is that I want to highlight is the LLMware on Hugging Face, where you can find out all those models that you can work with and build, you know, uh, an LLM driven application or a Gen AI based application. So we're gonna have a discussion with Nami on different topics. We're gonna talk about her journey, how they started, how the ideas originated, and what's going on at LLMware. What are the things on the roadmaps? We'll also discuss about this ongoing debate when we talk about large language model, the open source LLMs versus the closed source LLMs. We'll also see, because she's a female founder. We'll also talk about the diversity and inclusion, how that helps in a startup, and we'll also hear from her on different other topics. Mainly we'll see that how OpenAI has influenced this entire Gen AI ecosystem, and her perspective on other different topics like AI taking over jobs and whatnot. So let's start our conversation with Namee Oberst.
Nami, could you share your journey that you had with AI blocks and LLMware so far, how the idea originated, and now you guys have evolved so much, and I've been following it personally. Can you just enlighten us on the entire journey of AI blocks and LLMware for our audience?
Hi, Sonu. Thank you so much for the question. So we started AI blocks. I started conceptualizing AI blocks in some ways in my mind from way back. And by that, it's just a little bit of background about me. I actually started as a corporate attorney. So when I was working as a corporate attorney, I was working with literally like mountains of documents, rooms full of like papers and files. And, just really as a high paid corporate attorney working for one of the most prestigious law firms in the world, like I was doing a lot of repetitive tasks. And I thought, surely like there's just a way to automate some of this because what I was doing wasn't hard per se, it was just repetitive. So I've always had some kind of a use case of workflow automation in mind. And I've been thinking about that for actually quite a bit. And so through the years, conceptualizing, and then really started working on it when I saw the emergence of LLMs and the power of semantic search, et cetera. So we started as a way to automate solutions around like large volumes of documents to begin, and then I think the whole generative AI story, and then we could start to automate, take that beyond that simple use case, and then really layer in a lot of different solutions to create powerful workflows in the enterprise.
Fantastic. Okay, that's great. I have a question. That's a personal question that I have. Do you think that startups like OpenAI, or we will talk about startups like Midjourney, if you see the evolution of Midjourney, they started with a very small team. I think there were 10 to 11 people. They started their journey, and now they're one of the leading startups in the field of media generation. These startups, when you talk about OpenAI, Midjourney, Anthropics, and so on and so forth, do you think that these startups also play a role to inspire other entrepreneurs who are also looking to build some ventures in generative AI or AI altogether? Do you think there's any relations between these startups aspiring or inspiring the community?
Yes, absolutely. So the role of closed source companies like OpenAI, Anthropic, Midjourney, I think it allows people to. There are two ways people I found prototype their solutions. So one is because those services are so easy to access. I found that a lot of people, when they're trying to look to create like just a proof of concept of does this work in theory, they'll easily just access those types of solutions to just build out like a POC, and that's a very one of the most common use cases that I've seen. And then beyond that, because of like cost constraints, accessibility constraints, and then what I really specialize in are like data privacy, security, those types of constraints and concerns, people then start to move off of that and then look for like open source type solutions where they can run a lot of these solutions within their private cloud environment. But yeah, no, absolutely for you know, inspiring innovation, for inspiring, kind of the process. I think that they play a really critical role. Now, the question is, because open source is catching up so rapidly to these closed source models, I mean, open source is developing at a rate that I think no one has ever seen before. And quite frankly, I don't even think like anyone could have predicted the rate of innovation, right? But because AI is so popular, how many people are there at OpenAI? And I know they're all brilliant, amazing people versus like the rest of the world who are the brilliant, amazing people in the rest of the world who are trying to come up with solutions equal to that. At some point, I think that it's a no comparison. So people are really developing at a rate that's just tremendous and at a rate that no one could have predicted in the AI community. I mean, today I saw a post by I think somebody at Hugging Face, he was like, there are three, like mixture of expert models that came out like this week alone. And he's just like,
Yeah.
WTF, like, what am I going to do with this? How do we even have the time to test all this? Literally, that's how the post started. So, yeah, no, I think it's amazing what is happening in open source versus closed source. So, at some point, like, how is the closed source folks going to keep up? I don't keep up with open source in some ways. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, my by the way, for the audience, my next video is on mixture of experts. I'll be having on merging different LLMs using merge kit. So that's for the YouTube. Now, I agree with you. So I'll give you an short example of on my observation recently. If you look at how Mistral has started their, the journey that they have so far. They started with some of the open source LLMs. They also have built proprietary models because they also have a cloud that they offer their products through that cloud service. Now, I was just going through the ELO rating recently, and I found out Mistral 7B model is like on fourth or fifth position, and they are competing with the likes of GPT-4 and GPT 3.5 models. Though the model is proprietary right now, they haven't made it open source. But we'll talk about the open source. That's my next question. But I do believe and I think that's if you see how Jan LeCun predicted, right, Meta AI director, head of artificial intelligence, and he has predicted that year 2024 is going to be the year for the open source and also the LLMs, which are like smaller in sizes when you talk about the parameters. And I think he's the guy who can really see exponentials better than all of us, I feel. And I think this is important for us to keep a track of the open source community, because you are living somewhere in United States. Somebody from Minnesota can create a small language model that can beat all the other models. That's the power of open source community. It's all in the developer's hand. They can build something amazing that you don't know. And I was reading a post on LinkedIn. There's a guy who said that I'm not an AI expert, but I have built one of the best model using mixture of expert. And I found it fantastic. Now, tell us your views on, of course, a bit in detail about the open source community and open source versus the closed source once it comes to large language models and also the specialized RAGs, mainly in the terms of enterprises. If you look at the context where they believe about data protection and privacy for their clients, and they say, okay, I do not want to send my data to a third party provider. I need everything on premise within my infrastructure. Do you think there are this ongoing debate that we have? What's your views on the role of open source in generative AI?
Oh, I think it's huge. 5 seconds.
I agree.
Oh, I think that's huge. So, in terms of open source models in an enterprise, I mean, just again, I just saw a study, just for example, comparing performance of 2,000 token context windows, and the experiment was done with quite a few of the most popular models today. So just give you an example, including ChatGPT, GPT-4, Anthropic, and Gemini, and then Llama 2 to Mixtral, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was really interesting. So number one, closed source, these large models really struggled. And actually, except for ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo, Claude and Gemini and GPT-4 failed this test, actually. So very, very
Mhm.
interesting. And then within the smaller open source models, it's really interesting that Mistral 7B instruct passed, but there were larger models with higher parameter counts, like 33B or 70B, that didn't pass. So I really want to say that the parameter count, especially when you are trying to use it for RAG purposes, is less relevant. So what we do actually at LLMware is we instruct train models, smaller models for RAG. So we started this in September of last year. We launched our first small Bling 1 billion into Hugging Face. So what we do is we instruct train smaller models, 1 to 7 billion, for RAG use cases, to not hallucinate, to find the exact answer for accuracy, for instance, to say I don't know or not found if you don't know, et cetera, and to not be chatty, for instance, too. So basically, the model parameter count for RAG is less relevant, as you see clearly in this instance, right? So like you have the world's biggest models in like, GPT-4 versus the smaller models like Mistral 7 versus 7B instruct that can pass these tests. So this is kind of the thing that I think is very important to note, is that the small language models are really specialized for use cases. And so that's the important point, is that, especially when you have instances when you are like GPU constrained, or you care about privacy and you want to run this in your own, private environment, you don't actually need to hitch on to like the largest models in the world. That's actually very inefficient from like a number of reasons. Like you don't need to do that. It's expensive. It's environmentally not friendly. And like the analogy that I use is like you're trying to build an Empire State Building when all you needed was like a men's room, just as an
Yeah.
example, right? You don't need all that. And in fact, it's not even good for that, as these tests are proving. So really interesting what you can do with small specialized models and open source. So that's my view on that, because I think that, studies have found that.
Absolutely. I think I'm aligned to that perspective. And I also have a couple of findings when it comes to smaller language models. I think they are great for the narrower tasks. Once you have tasks which are really narrow, which are really downstream, right, in your value chain of whatever use cases that you have, very dedicated use cases if you're solving smaller language models works really well there. The other important aspect of using a small language model is carbon emissions. And I do believe because if you look at the enterprises, they all say that, we have sustainability is our, priority, and we look at that on a topmost agenda. And I do feel that, people are not talking about it nowadays due to the hype of generative AI. Earlier, last couple of years, there were a lot of noise about sustainability, looking at how to look at carbon emissions, offset accountability, and all of those things, right? So I do believe that we'll see more small language models. Even I am working on training small language models on for a couple of downstream tasks. So, and I find it interesting. I think this is for viewers who are coming from, like their graduation degrees, or who are like very young in this space. I'll ask them to, learn transformers, see how they can train models from scratch, on a smaller data set, the way they can learn faster, I believe. And yeah, but now that's the question that I'm going to ask you. It's very related to the fresher, the youngster, the younger generation. There are a lot of debates going on about the AI's impact on the job market. And there we have been saying that, Jeff Hinton, Jan LeCun, and they have been talking about it on the risk of AI. Of course, I'm not going to talk about human civilization over here. Somebody said that AI has risk to this entire civilization, but that's a very controversial topic to talk about. But what's your views on when we say that AI might take over when it comes to job market, or do you think it's going to replace or transform the role of a person right now? And what are some industries or domains that you think will be affected when it comes to AI's adoption in when we start adopting AI on a like on a very mainstream task? What do you think of that?
I think that every industry at some point will be touched by AI to some extent. I can't almost imagine any industry right now that, with the eventual adoption of AI, that won't be impacted. So, how does a person kind of prepare for the future is a great question. And to that, I really say specialize, specialize, specialize. So, the reason why I say that is because AI can replace a lot of the more general tasks, because we can, if you're training a model, or if I'm training a model, we can train it to kind of get the general task done up to, let's just say, 80%. And because, we're training models for like a broader use case, and for it to cover a lot of instances, where it doesn't really, do a great job is, let's say, in the more specific use cases, like down to the last 20% right now, like the last mile, if you really think about it. So um, that's where I think that human specialization can really come in. And that's where, I don't think that AI can completely replace humans in tasks. I mean, I'll just take the legal industry, for example. It can, like, just even for something as basic as research, it can do the basic research, like, 80, 90%, but only you kind of know the true intent of what you're looking for, and, what you really want to do with this. So you do need the person to read this and evaluate it to see what you want to next do with it. Just as a very simple, basic example. But I will really say, to prepare for the future, the basic generalist jobs, I kind of generally know how to do, XYZ, is probably going to be replaced by AI. So I will say, like, specialize, be it a vertical specialization, be it a technical specialization, or, and then ironically, there are, at least when I'm thinking about the role of LLMs, like, there are the more the human labor intensive jobs, right? That, that are struggling still, right? You can't have you know, Tesla cars still, like you say, like, are, they're struggling. Just as an example, I'm not saying that they're not going to be perfect, the way people want them to be perfect in 5 to 10 years, but
Yeah.
if I still have a water drain issue, I still need to call a plumber, for instance. So I can't see right now AI replacing that for me.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. So even if you look at the current space where we are operating, I think software engineering is something that, we see a lot of interest, and AI is doing fairly good job over there when it comes to looking at some of the use cases in software engineering. I also believe if you look at Google, I just reading the news that Google have, fired around 10,000 people, if I'm not wrong, in their sales or ads in that particular domain. I believe that that area is something which will be highly affected, because we'll see more sales co-pilot coming in, because I believe that AI or Gen AI in general is extremely powerful and capable when it comes to information discovery. We have so much of data available in this world right now. We talk about the internet, the open internet, and I think, and that's what Perplexity is doing, by the way. If you look at how Perplexity is working, they have been competing with the likes of Google Search, and that's one of my favorite startups as well. The way that they are doing in the field of information discovery and working with the AI agents and whatnot. And I do believe, and I'm also very reluctant to say that at this moment, and actually for the next few years, we have any threats, when it comes to AI. But in 10 years down the line, nobody can say anything the way we are moving, right? But that's for the next podcast, Nami. So the next question is that this question people have asked me to ask you and other experts or the founders who are operating in the field of Gen AI. If somebody is watching this video or this session from India or any part of the Africa, what are the advice that you're going to give them if they want to become an AI entrepreneur? And if you can give some inputs that help them become an entrepreneur in future.
So I'm going to say something bold right here. I'm going to bet that one or two of people who are subscribers to your channel are going to make it and make it big. So why do
I
I
feel
say?
I feel that number is less. That number has to go higher. I
Okay,
believe
I
that.
don't know how many people are going to watch this, so I'm going to assume a smaller number than your usual count. But if you get, like, let's say your usual view count, yeah, it's going to be a lot higher. Agreed. So no, maybe one or two people will go unicorn, and then you're going to have maybe 100 or 200 people who are going to have very successful businesses. And the reason why I say that is because, but the types of people who are watching a program like this, you already have a necessary ingredient. Number one, intellectual curiosity.
Correct.
There is no way that you're watching something like this if you don't have the intellectual curiosity to want to learn for yourself what is going on in this world. And I'm sure your subscribers are from all over the world, including, like India and Africa. So you are learning from channels, like amazing channels like the one you have, to learn about the latest and greatest development in AI. That's not to be taken for granted, this type of intellectual curiosity. So I would say you're probably like a third of the way there, in wanting to be educated and wanting to learn about the world. You'd be surprised at how many people would be sitting in the US and like not watching a channel like this to educate themselves about one of the biggest technological developments that's going on in the world right now as we speak. Like, so number one, congratulate like all your subscribers. You guys are amazing, and you're really like you're gonna make it if you just keep this up, honestly. Second, after you get to watch, after you're like, informed about this, the second is execution. So what do I mean by that? It's one thing to kind of like want to learn something, but it's another thing to actually go in deeper and deeper and deeper, and then to execute. So, instead of being like a mile wide and an inch deep, focus on something, some facet of what some of the content that you provide, and like dig in deeper and to really like make yourself an expert in that. So we can't be an expert at everything. I certainly am not like an expert in everything at all. So the value I get from like a channel like yours is like I get to learn about everything that's going on. So like I use this channel to like inform me about what's generally going on, but obviously for what I do, like specialized LLMs and RAG, like we really, really specialize. So I would recommend your viewers to do the same. So learn about what's going on in the world, which they're already doing by following this, then execute. Like go in, like, go in deeper and deeper and deeper. Like join the, Discord channels of some of the projects that you like, assemble the pieces, like, join WhatsApp groups, learn, experiment, and start to create, your own ideas and solutions around it. And then the third is grit, which I actually think a lot of people, will also have. If you made it through one and two, you hopefully will have grit, because it's not easy to start and to continue on. Because when you start an enterprise or when you start any activity, new activity, which doesn't exist. By definition, people are like very skeptical. So I want to just mention that because it's not often that you start an idea, then people go, oh yeah, like you know, that's fantastic. Actually, when I started talking about, the idea behind AI blocks, I had gotten this is like before like ChatGPT really came out. I've gotten people to say like, I mean, that's just like knowledge management. We've been
Yeah,
doing knowledge management for 20 years. Who needs that? Literally. So, so don't listen to people when they,
absolutely.
right? Just be like, if you believe in your project and you've worked on it and so you know it and you're an expert in it and you know like there's a lack or a void in X, like whatever you've discovered, believe in yourself, go for it, execute, and then to some extent you do have to tune out the, oh, they've been doing this for 30 years, we don't need this.
Absolutely. And I think this is very crucial for people to understand that in 2024, we have Chat GPT free. We can access BART in free. We can access Perplexity in free. We can access internet, okay, with the open internet, the information that we have. We have organizations like LLMWare. If you talk about LLMs, the models are free. You can take the weights, work with it. We have YouTube channels like mine, like Sam Win, like, One Little Coder, Prompt Engineering, a lot of other YouTubers that we have. And I give shout out to all of them. They're all doing great jobs, by the way, and they have all started before me. And what I want to tell this to this audience or the freshers, the people who are coming out of the colleges, that if you want to learn AI, think this as a gym. When you go to work out for the first day, you don't see any progress. You go for 1 week, you don't see any progress. You go for a month, you will start seeing progress. You do it for 6 months, you will see some buildups. You do it for a year, and you will see that your body has transformed. Keep on doing, get involved. And I believe that at the point that you said, right, you have to keep doing, get involved. And one day, eventually, you will crack it, right? Because it's a learning that we have. We have to spend at least couple of hours on daily basis to keep a track of what's happening. As being the startup founder, you have been doing what my competitors are doing. I have to look at this point. I have to look at what Hugging Face is doing. OpenAI has released any model that will wipe out all the startups or something like that, right? So I mean, it's all about how involved you are in the work that you are doing, even if it's studies, academia, projects, or even if you're working at your workplace. And I think that's what people are the youngsters like me, and of course the juniors that coming out of colleges, they have to stop scrolling the Instagram and go and start doing the meaningful things. By the way, now I was taking notes before this meet of ours, Nami, and somewhere on LinkedIn, I read that there was a point called women-led leadership, and I loved it. And I wanted to keep this question. I wanted to ask you personally because I'm a huge admirer of the organizations who believe in diversity and inclusion. And I have followed what Google has done in Africa, to empower women's, software development and all those things. And just tell us about how the organization hierarchy is there or the at AI blocks, how many people you guys have, and how the women leadership looks like. And if you can enlighten us on that, maybe some startups who are also planning, working on the strategy for diversity and inclusion that will help them to do that.
So I am obviously a strong advocate of women-led leadership, and especially in tech. So, but just women-led leadership in general too. I found a LinkedIn post actually by this Harvard researcher named Brian Spizak. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. He generated he asked, I think, ChatGPT to create images of like the concept of leadership. And it created 5 images, and all of the 5 images that it created were male of the leader. It was a male, a tall, thin, Caucasian-looking male in all 5 of these images. And so this LinkedIn post was actually highlighting almost like the implicit bias in AI, just as an example. I know this is like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a very interesting topic for me because it has to be addressed in AI, first of all. And so I want to just start by highlighting that there are issues like that we need to really focus on and address. And some of the comments seem to say, well, I mean, what did you expect? There are, one person went so far as to say, well, there aren't any female leaders for to draw on. And I take offense to that because, I mean, are you saying there are no female leaders in history? Like, that's ridiculous, right? Um, So I want to just highlight that because I want us to all really look at the way we think of like leaders, and it's an issue that's really dear to my heart. If you really think about, the kind of even my audience, like the people who join my Discord and the people who, have starred me on GitHub, I am a little I am a little troubled by the disproportionate number of men versus women in tech. And I really, if there are any women out there like listening to this, I strongly, strongly encourage you to please like, make yourselves heard and to be more visible and to speak up, because I think especially even in tech and then let alone in AI, the female voices are just getting drowned or maybe are fewer than even there used to be. So I fear for that. So the way that we try to mitigate that is, we do kind of, I have personally spoken at like women in fintech, for instance, and try to really kind of promote like being involved with AI, to learn about AI, to do exactly kind of what a lot of your viewers are doing, is to like, to subscribe to channels like this to learn, because learning is like the first step, right, towards getting involved. So to do that, and our VP of engineering is
Yep.
female, and we really want to promote and be more inclusive of women, of different ethnicities. And I just think it's very important to highlight that. I don't think that it's being talked about enough at all. And I was really surprised and troubled by some of the comments saying, well, I mean, you know, the AI model is like just parroting back what it's been fed. So there aren't that many women leaders. So what did you like? How did you expect it to, draw these pictures? And and then that has a lot of downstream effects, like bias begets bias, right? So the more like these pictures show up with like out of 5 pictures, like not one are female and not one seem to be non-Caucasian, and they're all like tall and thin, and I mean,
Absolutely.
a lot of these biases. So we have to try to mitigate that. And yes, like I understand in this world disproportionately, there are more male leaders, but are you also saying there are no female leaders for this AI to draw upon? Like that's wrong. So we need to somehow fix this.
Absolutely. And yeah, I will talk about biases probably. I don't want to make this a
Yeah.
bit controversial, but I was reading few years back, I think couple of years back, on how the LinkedIn algorithm works on the job recommendations. And there was something also that I read about. There was a bit of biasness towards the other gender, but I think that's for offline. But and that's why I have a huge respect for Mira Murati at OpenAI, the CTO of OpenAI, and she became the CEO for a day or two, but people started saying at back that okay, she has been the reason behind the sacking of Sam Altman and whatnot, right? So there were some stories going on, but I'm so proud on the women who are doing good on and that level, and the founders like you coming up and and showing the world that it's possible. And but I will ask a personal question, because this question have been asked to me by a lot of other people. Okay, and I don't know if that's a myth. Do you think that having a female leader in the founding team helps in the investment at any point of time, like when you are raising funds, some kind of funds, if you are raising it at your venture? Do you think a female leadership helps when you go to the investors?
I quite frankly don't think that's the case at all. And I am gonna say something controversial because it's something I've talked about with other female founders. No, not at all.
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of implicit biases against women. First of all, I'm not saying everyone's biased. That's not true at all. But I do think that, we all carry around with us some implicit bias. And so, when you're used to thinking about, let's just say, AI founders as, you know, um, usually younger men, from with certain pedigrees, right, and a certain like racial profile, for instance. I think that when you have women who are just different, different gender, maybe perhaps different race, et cetera, I don't think that it's actually helped at all. And I've spoken very candidly with other female founders, and I haven't literally met anyone who's thought that it helped.
Yeah. No, no, I absolutely. I think we have to promote this. We have to promote, and I do promote even in my team wherever I work. I look for diversity, of course. Now, And you know that we have been talking a lot about enterprises, that how LLMware can help an enterprise when it comes to generative AI. Tell us about your product a bit, the enterprise solutions that you guys have been building, and how you can help an enterprise, and why should an enterprise should reach out to you, or they should work with you.
Yeah. Oh, no, thank you for the opportunity. So we basically specialize in fine-tuned models specific to the use case and to your enterprise. So we can provide that. And for any enterprises that are concerned about privacy, security, in private cloud or on-prem, and you want to fine-tune your own specialized models, and then also if you would like to get help with orchestrating that workflow around it, from data ingestion all the way to how do you actually feed these models with your information, we could definitely help with that. So that's basically our specialty. We have our own data sets that we've handcrafted using primary sources, so not relying on any copyright materials, et cetera. So that is something that we bring that is very unique to what we do.
So do you have the capability to even to train LLMs? Like, for example, if one of the enterprises comes to you and say, hey, look, we have this abundance of data. We have last 10 years of our data, and yeah, we want to leverage your capability to, train an LLM or even fine tune an LLM in general. Do you guys have this capability?
Oh, oh yeah, we
Okay.
have over 25 models in Hugging Face. Our models are under LLMware. Our Dragon and Bling models are fine-tuned, and then we also have embedding models that we fine-tune for specific industries like insurance, asset management, etc. So we definitely have that capability.
I have used those models, Nami. So I have used in my proof of concept. So I can tell you that they work good, by the way. When you compare with the other models like Llamas and Mistrals of the world. Now, tell us about the roadmaps. Okay, what's coming? What's cooking right now at AI Blocks?
What I'm really, really excited about that I'm working on is, we specialize, we talked about this a lot. Talking about small specialized models, right? And so beyond that, like beyond the fact that they're small and specialized, the underlying message is that, they are not very, they don't need GPUs to run, especially with the quantization that, capabilities today. You can take 7 billion parameter models and then run them without GPUs. So then what we're really working on is a way to almost mix and match small language models capabilities. And if you can do that and then also use structured and unstructured data, and really start to, if you really think about it, to assemble a workflow using small language models and have a whole variety of almost like mix and match capabilities. Like let's just say this model is great for querying,
Yeah.
doing like SQL queries. This model is great for classification. This model is great for RAG, et cetera, et cetera. So that actually starts to, if you chain all these, yeah, if you kind of mix all these things together, I think it can lead to really, really powerful and almost like infinite use cases within the enterprise. And yeah, like that's exactly what we're working on. So I think that's really novel, and I've actually really not discussed this in open with anyone. So this is like the first time actually talking about it, but that's really what's cooking.
No, that made me excited, and I'm just thinking about that. I just started visualizing, like creating an ensemble pipeline or having a sequential kind of a pipeline that we can use it, of course, using the orchestration that you guys have, working on. And I think I agree on that. Again, I think that's what we need. We'll talk about that maybe offline to know more. I don't want your competitor to hear what you guys are working right now, just to keep it a bit secret. Uh, we are at the start of the year, and people have made a lot of predictions on what's going to happen in 2024, what's coming, their predictions on LLMs, multi-vision, large vision models, or the multimodal LLMs coming up in 2024 will have more smaller models. Or there have been some bold predictions of AGI also, from some pioneers. What's your view? Like, do you have any bold prediction to make before we wrap this up? Like, do you have uh, do you see anything that will be like really remarkable, and people will see a big change when it comes to generative AI in 2024?
A huge change, no, but a definite trend and direction, yes. Definitely the focus is turning more and more on small language models. And by that, like 1 to 7 billion, just because of how well like these 7 billion parameter models quantize. And then I think there's also a definite trend which is already really well underway towards a multimodal. So those are going to be very, very interesting spaces to watch, at least from, sitting where I'm sitting. And I think other, really heavy giants in the industry are also looking at capabilities like that if you, speak with other, and I think other people like Apple, Intel, NVIDIA are all, really kind of converging
Yeah.
on these types of capabilities. So definite trend, but will come to fruition in 2024.
No, I think I have some predictions to, make, and I believe that 95% of the problems that we are seeing or we have seen last year when it comes to large language models or generative AI ecosystem, like hallucinations, for example, let's take one of the example. And I believe that those problems will be solved, by the end of 2024. We'll see improvements, of course, in this ecosystem of generative AI. And I believe OpenAI will come up with something amazing that I believe that, I've been talking with some guys over, and I believe that they will come up with something which will blow away people in the summer of 2024. And of course, smaller language models. People will work on dedicated models. We'll have more CPU based models, better quantization techniques, more open source libraries coming in to support the ecosystem of Gen AI. It will be easier to build products, I believe. And these are the few predictions that I see. Before we wrap this up? Anything you want to say to the audience or people who are watching this right now?
What I want to say is, first of all, like I love that everyone's just converging on a channel like this to learn about this. To me, there's like nothing more fun and exciting than what is happening in the world right now. So
Right.
I love that. And, I'd love to, I can't wait to continue the dialogue and just do like progress checks. So I'm going to join your WhatsApp community because I know you have one now, which you told me. And let's just keep talking and learning from each other.
Let's end my conversation with Namee Oberst, and I hope you have her perspective on how to start a journey in the field of generative AI. If you want to start your own venture, I believe that this video will give you enough insights and how you can start your own venture in the field of Gen AI or the large language models in general. Also on the uh, developments that's going to be happen at LLMWare, mainly with the open source large language model or the smaller language models that they are working right now. And they will have more specialized language models or a domain specific language models coming up as well. Right now, you can use their models from Hugging Face. I'll give the link in the description of their Hugging Face repository where you can use their different models. Mainly, they have different variants and categories of language models and the uh, domain-specific embeddings model that you can utilize as well. And also, we discussed about the ongoing debate that is happening between the open source LLMs versus the closed source LLMs as well. So I believe you have different perspective. Once you completely watch the video, you will have this perspective now of on different topics. And if you have any thoughts, feedbacks, or your own perspective on the topics that we discussed in the video, please comment that in the comment box. You can also reach out to me through my social media channels. Please find those details on the channel description and the channel banner as well. If you like this content, please hit the like icon because we'll have more discussions and tech talks coming up with different industry leaders as well. Share the video and channel with your friends and to peer. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.